They asked if I could create a work of art that would be the first official piece to land on the moon's surface.
Sacha Jafri, a visionary artist. How does that work when you've got so much area to consider?
It's about creating this message of a reconnection of humanity.
Storytelling is basically a communication between me and the viewers.
Zenofar Fathima, an award-winning filmmaker. You are there to play tricks on us.
So I make a story to put on the edge of the seat where the people are like, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
We're trying to bring guests into a space and transform their own minds, to captivate them, put them through a journey.
Bishop Design, an award-winning design firm, in terms of how that brief unfolds when you're bringing in different design elements.
Our view on how we tell that story is all about what obviously the end goal is for the client. We try to find a natural, organic or authentic way to tell that story.
These contributions not only beautify the spaces and screens, but also challenge us. Welcome to Beyond the Surface, a podcast brought to you by Design Studio by Huzaifa. I'm Helen Farmer, and I'm thrilled to be your guide through the inspiring world of design, art, and architecture. This podcast series is a journey into the essence of high-end living, where every episode invites you to dive deep into the stories, ideas, and meticulous craftsmanship that define luxury spaces and timeless aesthetics. Today, we will discuss how art and design do more than just fill spaces. They tell compelling stories, reflect personal and cultural identities, and transform how we experience the world. Our distinguished guests today are individuals who not only push the boundaries of their respective crafts, but also redefine them. Each brings a unique perspective on how design transcends simple aesthetics to influence every facet of human life. So let's begin this journey with a quick round of introductions of our guests. First, we welcome Sacha Jafri, a visionary artist whose ambitious projects have spanned the globe and even reached the moon. Yep, he has literally sent a painting to the moon. How many of us can say that on our CV? And Sacha does not stop there. He holds a record for selling the world's largest painting, The Journey of Humanity, for $62 million, making one of the most expensive paintings ever sold in the world. Moving on, Zenofar Fathima. I'm so delighted to welcome an award-winning filmmaker who created the world's first escape room TV series. Zenofar is renowned for her psychological horror content that delves into human emotions and our fears. Her work is celebrated for its intricate set designs and compelling storytelling, creating truly immersive experiences that challenge and engage her audience. Mehmet Aktash is with us finally at the table, the managing director of Bishop Design, an award-winning design firm based in Dubai for over 20 years. Bishop Design has created groundbreaking interiors across the region and on a global scale, with an outstanding portfolio of commercial, hospitality, retail, and residential projects. Welcome to Beyond the Surface, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. We're talking about storytelling today. Sacha, let's start with you. Storytelling through your medium of art. What does that mean to you?
Okay, so I guess I look at it a bit differently. I think storytelling. I don't really see storytelling as something that exists. If I'm being honest, I believe that we're made of energy. We communicate at our most poignant, our most powerful through energy. But the energy we emit into the world is made of our intentions. And when our intentions become questionable, financially driven, ego-driven, socially driven, agenda-filled, we emit static. Our world is full of static. Energy can't transmit through static, hence the breakdown of humanity, in simple terms.
So for you, it's about authenticity and speaking your truth?
No. So that's the situation, right, that I believe we're in the world. And that's what I believe real communication is. And storytelling is just about real communication. It's about connecting with human beings. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. Saving our planet, looking after our planet, doing good deeds, looking after our children. All of these things are a byproduct of what we're really here for, which is to love and find love. That's it. Everything else is a distraction. So storytelling for me is this, for a lot of people, I think it has many facets and many roads and many paths. For me, it has one singular connection point, which is to surrender, to connect, and to transmit a very, very pure energy into the world, which can then, what you call storytell. But in my mind, it's connection with poignancy.
I think that's
That's what's
beautiful.
interesting to me as an artist. And that's what I consider storytelling and existence itself to be about.
So Zenofar, yours is much more of a linear because you are actually telling stories through the medium of film and television. Tell us a little bit about how you interpret that phrase, storytelling, because you are there to play tricks on us. You're there to hook us in. And you know the story when often the audience is quite literally in the dark.
Storytelling is basically a communication between me and the viewers. I mean, I have a story in mind, and that's what I communicate through films. And I feel storytelling through films is more enjoyable because it's not boring. People understand that better. So that's my way of storytelling through the films.
It's a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool.
And interestingly, when we're doing storytelling with Bishop, Mem, it's often through a client's brief and helping them interpret the story that they want to tell.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the guys here, it's a very different take. And I love actually what sort of Sash just said about, like, it's not really an end journey. It's not really the end goal is to tell the story. It's just actually, I see it as almost documentary. You know, you're documenting a moment, a process. Whereas for us, like you said, we're sort of given a brief by a client, and we're kind of the sort of second or third layer into the process. And our view on how we tell that story is all about what obviously the end goal is for the client. You know, and we try to find a natural, organic or authentic way to tell that story. And of course, they come to us to try to find that right route or that right storytelling method. So, but I find it's a very different process to obviously, you know, art and film. But we certainly use those influences for us to be able to find our own references.
And also in terms of how that brief unfolds when you're bringing in different design elements as well. You know, what is a particular color or texture or space or, you know, beautiful lighting going to be communicating psychologically to guests, to residents?
Yeah, I mean, it's experiential. You know, we're trying to bring guests into a space and sort of transform their own minds and how they're experiencing their life, their journey, etc. And we want to captivate them. That's what it's about, and tell a story and sort of put them through a journey as such, even though it's maybe one venue, but you still want to let them have the experience of a journey of that process.
Absolutely. You know, coming to restaurants as an example, we don't just go out to eat.
No, that's right.
Food is not just fuel. You know,
it's way beyond that now, isn't it? It's moved on. You
absolutely,
know, it's
connection.
Especially recently. You know, if you look at a lot of the venues now, it's like exactly that. It's no longer about just eating. It's
about
where's
the
ambience,
show,
where's and it's become this sort of 360 experience.
Exactly, the escapism, the people watching, you know, connecting around a table like we are today. It's so much more. I want to come back to this idea of signature style because you each have this very distinct way of communicating. Tell us a little bit about how you've crafted your signature style. How long did it find you, Sacha, to find your voice and be able to put something into the world that you feel is truly you, that you recognize in the work and also other people recognize too?
So the questions like this for me, it's different, right?
Yeah,
because I'm like, I don't paint because I want to. I paint because I have to. The short answer to that question is 45 years. That's the short answer. I'm 47, so I guess since I was 2.
Little Sacha.
Yeah. It's 45 years, I guess, of learning that journey. But I think it's a bit different for me in that as a kid, as a child, I was chronically dyslexic. I still have synesthesia.
Do you really?
Yeah.
For anyone that's not familiar with that term, can you explain what it is and how it relates to you?
Basically, 2 wires in your brain are in the wrong place.
Okay.
So this guy's meant to go here, and this guy's meant to go here. They're synapses. They're not physical wires. But instead of going here and here, they've gone there, and it muddles up your senses. Okay. So I don't see color. I hear color. I don't hear sound. I see it.
That's incredible.
And I can't change that. There's nothing I can do to ever change that. So when you're a child and you're chronically dyslexic, like ADHD, but every kid has ADHD nowadays, and synesthesia, I couldn't make sense of the world. I literally couldn't make sense of the world. Everything around me, people, human beings particularly, dogs I could make sense of. Human beings, no chance. So I was very frustrated, probably quite angry, full of a lot of frustration, fear, confusion. And the only time I could make sense of the world was when I painted. It's the only time that I could, I guess, get in this place of surrender, connection, and expression, whereby I could connect and understand the place that I was in. I really don't paint because I want to. I have to. If I don't paint for 2 months, I become an incredibly difficult person. So that is a very long journey. And I think you're talking about style, signature style, etc. I don't really have a signature style that I see or understand, let's say, or would know or want to express, really, I think, in words. My signature style, I think, comes in my beliefs, which is that I don't think it matters really what you make, build, or achieve in this life. I think it matters the intentions with which you do it.
Yeah, at that moment in time as well. You know, what is true to you in that moment with the best information you have and the lens that you are living through at that time.
Yeah, but it's about the intentions with which you make that thing. Because at the end of the day, the only legacy you leave this world is the energy we emit and the vibrations we leave behind. That's it. Everything else is a distraction. So as an artist, as you say, a storyteller, let's say, as someone who has developed signature style, let's say, it all comes from that understanding. And that understanding has taken me 45 years to work out. And I think the most important part about it all is not to focus on what you make, as an artist particularly, but to focus on how you live your life. And then every now and then, you'll borrow a moment. Something will be lent to you. Number one, it's only borrowed. And number two, it's only a moment. And something magical will spill out of you. And when it does, and something happens, you give that moment back and you say thank you. And when you give it back with grace, with gratitude, those moments keep coming. As soon as you engage the ego and say, look at me, look what I built, look what I've done, isn't this amazing? Those moments don't come anymore.
It dries up.
People call that creator's block or writer's block, but in my mind, there's no such thing. It's when you forget to live a life of grace, you engage the ego, you forget to surrender, and you forget that all you're doing is borrowing a moment.
I'm so grateful that you're able to find art as an outlet because, you know, young Sacha could have been, been even more distressed. And I think it is really important to try and find your medium, whatever that might be. You know, I grew up as a writer, and now I'm in broadcasting. And it's really interesting to think about what works at different times for us as individuals. And tell us a little bit about your medium and crafting your signature styles. And how did that happen?
See, basically, when they tell my name, Zenofar Fathima, storytelling. So that's always on the edge of the seat. So I make a story that has no solution sometimes. That's what I always make. So my signature works on that, like psychological thriller. And something to put on the edge of the seat where the people are like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? So that is my signature for now. But I'm trying to, build in more stuff like, it could be emotional because I would want to do something like that. So we're working on that as well.
Mehmet, it's a little bit different for you guys as a consultancy because the style is going to very much depend on so many different factors. The brief, the environment, whether it's here in Dubai or in Miami, of course, budget, trends, what's happening. But do you feel there is a thread that runs through Bishop when you can look back and go, this actually is part of our DNA? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think we can probably relate more to what sort of Sacha was saying here as well. And one thing that we often talk about in our studio is about sort of nurturing, being your true, authentic self, and I think that's the one thing that we can hold dear to ourselves. And by being so, you can be free. It's harder than you think, right? It's harder than you think, exactly. Yeah. Because exactly what you said, the second you sort of step out of that mold and you try to, the ego kicks in, then you lose it. It's gone. But if you stay true to yourself, then you can be that creative, and that creativity can come through in what we do. So then for us, for instance, it then becomes about the confidence, being unapologetic in what we do.
And does that sometimes mean saying no to a client, to a project, or to a direction?
I think we've got to a point where we are known for a particular style and our expression, that we are then approached for that work. So very few times would we ever say no, because they're coming to us because they want that expressiveness. They want, that authentic freedom, let's say, for us to then create something for them. That's what we do. That's how we try to bring our signature in. So there's no signature style. A lot of people do, yes, but that for us, that's very sort of surface led. That's not how we design.
Can I ask you to come back to that word trends, which I don't really like because I feel like
we hate that word.
Quality kind of transcends all of that. But what are you noticing when it comes to requests, when we talk about materials or colors, vibes, I guess. What are you
I want
hearing?
to go back to that. What we said earlier is experiential. That's what people want. And I think people are starting to want more and more. But they don't necessarily know what that actually means. They just know that it has to be with substance. It has to be, the experience has to be there, the layers have to be there. A
lot of textures, I'm saying.
A lot of texture, absolutely. I mean,
more
the way
textural.
Going back to what you're saying about style, what we, I think, do sort of very well is that we can bring a lot of texture and material and color into a space.
Yeah, you guys are really good at that.
Yeah, but for the reason that it's all authentic. There's a reason. There's always the question of why. Why is it there? What if it doesn't belong? If there's no reference, if there's no heritage to the reason or reason behind its use, then don't use it.
Can you give us an example? Has there been a project recently where you feel like there have been pushing the boundaries a bit of traditional
probably the most
interior design?
Explosive in terms of just a visual appearance, and it is quite overwhelming. I would say is Enfuego in
quite overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. It's it. I mean, it is sensory overload.
It's a lot.
It's a lot exactly, and I even find it quite distracting when I'm in that space. You're so overwhelmed with so much going on. I find it hard to focus. That's how it is. But when you do focus and you start to notice the details and what's there and the layers and the textures and the references,
it's like one of those old restaurants from the 70s. Those that would just
that's right.
Exactly. OTT, everything.
OTT,
but then the food's got to keep pace as well. It's this idea of how do you balance all of those senses?
And it's all got to come together. Exactly. So we always try to do more than just the aesthetic, more than just the design, and we're never afraid to sort of influence what the offering should be. What should they be doing as a service? The type of food, how they serve, all of that comes into the whole mixture or the whole palette.
Can we talk about color? Because I find it fascinating from a psychological point of view, the way that...
We don't have much colour here today.
I know, we're very neutral today.
Neutral
we're going to bring it alive now because I want to get some examples of how you each use colour in your storytelling, in your projects. And I think your point earlier about being able to sense it in different ways, Sacha, is really fascinating.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you feel colour can influence us psychologically, emotionally.
So I think the first thing to understand is that color vibrates. That's the first thing to understand. Then you want to understand that if you put an orange next to a green, the vibrations will create a different visual field, a different emotion, a different connection, a different vibration. You put an orange next to a black, different vibration. You're not seeing color. You think you are, but you're not. You're sensing it through vibration, which is sending signals to your brain, which is engaging an emotion inside of you. Color is much more powerful than you realize. And people don't really understand that, which I think is a shame.
True.
And they can live a lot of their life without understanding what color is physically and the power of color. When you understand that it's vibration, then you have to understand that color has no power and nothing unless it is laid with intention. I know I sound repetitive, but intention creates that vibration. So you can have a black material and it can be, let's talk in paint. But it can be a material, it can be a substance, it can be anything. But let's talk in paint because it's easier. You get 5 people, you line them up. You get 5 exact same pots of paint, black paint, exactly the same brush, right? You get each person to do exactly the same stroke on a canvas. Each of those strokes will look and feel different because of the intentions with which they were laid, which will create that vibration, which will enable the connection to you through your soul. That's how we really connect and relate to color. We just don't realize it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So I think that's the power and importance of color. Color becomes this beautiful, playful tool that you can experiment with. And it's just electrically exciting.
So do you feel like a lot of people are living in black and white then? Not that black and white are bad, but perhaps not understanding the full potential.
I think people are living in perception, so what red means to you means something very different to me. So I see it as energy, but people's perceptions and social sort of understandings.
Culturally as well. That must be really fascinating when you're working globally. I mean, using red as an example could be, wealth or danger or romance.
Yeah.
What about using it for your psychological means, Zenofar? How are you using color?
I think it's more of mood. We define character, mood, and the theme. That's what I use color for filmmaking. So basically, if you say psychological thriller, we have to completely make that area in such a way that what I feel is what my viewers will feel.
Tell us about creating a set then. How do you begin
Like
with
a
that?
set design.
She looks excited. Look.
Well, I love behind the scenes. Tell us.
See, basically when you do a story, you write down the story, what exactly it is. Then comes the script. Then you need to divide the script into what all props you need. And what is the story telling you? If it's a theme, if it's a psychological thriller, or if it's a darkness, you need to bring down the tones and the colors down. So what I feel as a story is what I would want my viewers to feel. So that's how we do the set design. Because if you put an empty room and you don't do anything, I see it as an empty room. So you will also see that is an empty room.
But that's interesting because people could interpret an empty room in very different ways as well.
That's right. But as I tell my story, this is my story. I don't do movies for the people. I do the movies what I have a story to tell them.
Through the lens, it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
You're communicating in this very different way as soon as you go through a lens and a screen.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's very
I find
different.
filmmaking fascinating.
And mostly even during, like when I did an escape room series, the colors, I had to put in colors in such a way because it was a darkness where the people need to know what exactly is happening over there.
And then do you find that in projects, Mem, where it photographs very differently and people find themselves in the space and go, oh, this actually wasn't what I was expecting at all?
Yeah, I mean, yes, is the answer. A lot, yeah. Look, again, we try to sort of take an influence
this
in the
looks a lot better
cinematic.
in the catalogue.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Yeah.
This wasn't
Yeah,
the
it's
hotel I
true.
booked.
Sometimes when I see the catalog, the colors are like, okay, this is the one. When I see it in real, I'm like, this is not what it is.
But
But it's the same in the camera as well. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And for that, we use film actually as a great reference because we're very cinematic in the way that we want to sort of, let's say, stage that shot or that view, or, you know, and we often very much take an influence from film and photography for that reason, you know. But I also love what you were saying about like stage design, because I find you guys have this sort of amazing ability as filmmakers that you can make the viewer uncomfortable with a simple set
absolutely.
design.
We can make them, we can scare them. We can
exactly.
give
It
them
could be
emotional.
a very stark environment. You really feel very
whatever we
uncomfortable.
want according to
Anxiety
the
kicks
story.
in.
You're the puppet master.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. But and we can try to do the same. But of course, with us, we're trying to attract people in and not deter.
It's
So we have
nice.
to be
We're all
very-
coming from very different places, which is really nice. Different ways of connecting. And
But it all goes back
communicating.
to what you're saying, emotions. You know, you've got to trigger these emotions and it has to
Absolutely.
resonate with who you are. So, you know, if I'm...
Through different mediums.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so. Yeah.
Can we talk about the scale as well? We have to talk
can,
about...
Helen. Tell me.
Well, paintings on the moon, and of course, you know, the huge canvas project.
One painting on the moon.
One.
Yeah.
But when we're thinking about, 17,000 square foot, and you're talking exactly there about placing colours next to each other, and you're talking about relationship between colours, how does that work when you've got so much area to consider? How's it possible to zoom out?
My answers are never simple, Anne. And I also never answer the question. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
When I paint, I'm in a very, very deep meditative state. So my brainwaves go into theta. So they tested my brain, they put pads on my brain, and they found that my brainwaves go into theta. And I'm in this incredibly deep trance. You can't create from theta. It's a contradiction. It's a state of surrender. Mozart did it and Beethoven did it, interestingly, but no painters have done it. So they found that very interesting. They did a lot of case studies and they were like, what's going on? What's happening? So I became really interested in it. And what I found was that I am in this incredibly deep meditative state, and you could punch me in the face while I'm painting and I wouldn't be aware of it. So I'm in a complete state of surrender, complete.
So do you then look back and not recognize what you've created?
Yes, absolutely. I don't have a clue what I've created. There's no sketch before. There's no thinking. I'm disengaging the brain and I'm engaging the soul. If you can connect to that good energy that's out there, wow, the potential of the human being is phenomenal. And if you can channel that through creation, through art, through expression, it's the most beautiful, powerful thing on our world. So that, I guess, is what I'm doing when I'm painting. I'm not looking.
Or overthinking?
No, I'm in a state of surrender. So I have no clue what's happening.
I'm not sure how many people listening and watching this can actually relate to that, because I think you're incredibly
A lot
incredibly
of
lucky.
creatives
confused.
can
I'm
relate
like,
to that.
where is the energy?
Well, no, because I'm sure I'm not making a massive leap here. I suspect you have a very busy brain. I have a very busy brain,
Yeah.
but I find it very, very, very hard to calm it and get to a place. I don't know. I find it very difficult. So I think it's a real blessing that you have found
But how
that
do you
outlet.
disengage your brain?
Yeah, teach us your ways.
So what I used to do, I used to stare at a blank canvas, a white blank canvas for about 5 hours.
Okay.
So I'm not sort of in this meditative state like this. I'm just staring at a blank canvas. And you never stare at anything in life for that length of time. You're watching a film, your brain's engaging, disengaging, re-engaging every split second. You're looking at the clouds. The light's changing, your brain is disengaging, re-engaging all the time. If you stare at a white blank canvas in a flat light space, there is no light change, there's nothing moving, there's nothing.
That's right.
As you stare, you will disconnect the mind. It's like falling into a state of meditation. It's surrendering the ego, surrendering the self, and connecting to something more powerful than us, which is undeniably around us. It's undeniable. It's around us. It's phenomenal. And when you do that, you can then release something that has magic. Very rare, very difficult, but every now and then it'll happen, right? And it's this most beautiful thing. So it used to take me 5 years to get into that state, but I've been playing a song on a loop.
What's the song?
It's from a movie which Reese Witherspoon made about this Texan woman, a true story, who saves these refugees and brings them back, and the struggle she has in doing that. And the movie's called The Good Lie, and the song is called Growing Up.
Does it have lyrics?
It has lyrics. And the melody's beautiful, and the meaning, the messaging, beautiful, and the intention with which it was laid, beautiful. So when I've played that on a loop for, I guess, 15 years as I paint, so it drives people insane.
Your Spotify Wrapped must be
They find it like, whoa. Well, because I've been doing that as I create, I can press play on that song, and about 45 seconds in, I'm gone.
It's association, isn't it?
I'm completely gone.
Wow.
Like literally, people find it really weird to see. So you can do that in front of me. And I won't.
I'm quite tempted to
Yeah.
get the
Wow,
speaker
that's
out.
like-
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I think many people after 5 minutes of staring at a blank canvas in a room with flat light start to feel very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, maybe.
Why is that?
Which
You have to train yourself to do
Yeah,
that.
I think
right?
we're
Because
all-
you
but-
start seeing things you don't want to see.
Exactly. And I think we're very quick now to distract ourselves from discomfort, from
Yes,
anything that
very
makes us
true.
feel,
that's a
slightly
very dangerous
vulnerable.
thing.
It's picking up the phone. It's
Very
reaching for food. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
our attention spans, and I see this in my children, are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And I think creativity is probably going to be paying the price for that.
And Sacha, like when you're in that state and you sort of channel that energy into creativity and what you produce, and obviously not really being aware of what you're producing at that time, it must still come from somewhere. There must be an influence. Is it just
Yeah, there
from
is.
influences of your life experiences, how you see the world?
So basically, if I'm creating from the subconscious, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I have to fill my conscious life with meaningful
Yeah,
things. Otherwise, when I dip into or connect to the subconscious, it'll just be nothing. Empty.
Exactly.
It's rubbish.
Yeah.
So yes, I consciously, what I've actually learned, it's taken a long time. What I've actually sort of found out is that my work is all inspired from human emotion. We think there's a few hundred emotions, right? Every split second, you are feeling another emotion,
Okay.
but you don't connect with it, because if you did, you'd be exhausted.
Right. Yeah.
But it's
I-
all filed away.
Yeah. I have this disorder, whatever you call it, whereby I'm connecting with far too many of those emotions. I'm feeling them everywhere.
So real kind of empath.
It's like full on. And so I actually now try and connect with as many of those emotions as I can, so that when I get into that subconscious, that meditative state, it all starts from one point, a singular emotion. And I will see this singular emotion in the middle of the canvas, which will be a nucleus of color. It'll be a ball of color. That's it. And it'll rotate in the middle of the canvas. I'll know what that emotion is. I won't be able to describe it to you. I won't be able to tell you what it is, but I'll know I'll feel it. And then I'll see it moving. From that, a singular emotion, I will build mark, color, shape, form, like this. And out of that, weirdly, comes a narrative.
Which is
How
not a
that
conscious decision.
happens. No.
It's because it's 100% authentic. It can be nothing else other than that.
So that's really interesting, because that's not an inspiration as such. It's a source. But when we think about our inspirations, sometimes we just go through life without realizing exactly that, what we're picking up on, what's being
Influences.
stored away, whether that is a sentence, a color, an interaction, a person. When we think about influences in filmmaking for you, Zenofar, how do you kind of pull it all together? And are there any places?
The emotions?
No, in terms of you, do you have that moment that, okay, now I'm onto something, I need to sit down, I need to lock the door, I need to write, I need to create. How do you create a space or an environment?
How do I create a story?
Because I think, when we're in any space.
Right now I'm looking at him. I heard him. My brain is like moving around. What is it? What can I do a story on what he's saying? So then I have a picture.
Doing that.
So we've got busy brains in the studio today.
Okay, I have a picture. Okay, fine. Which actor can we take? Okay, this is it. So can we do this?
Brad Pitt.
So it's like that. So right now my mind is running, and that's why I'm listening to him. I'm learning about him so that I can get a story out of it. Probably.
So you're like a sponge.
It's like I do something called reel files, which is a filming under 1 minute. I tell a story for under 1 minute. So right now, I think the last one which I did was about a time machine. Like the lady got money and she wants to go back. She'll only get the money after 20 years. But she was so greedy enough to go to the time machine and she went back to 70 years. And then she couldn't get back. So that's where I left the edge of the seat. Like she's crying. She has the money, but she doesn't have her youth. She's not young anymore. I might do a 1 minute on him, on his emotions. So that's what I was thinking.
And when we think about the importance of the environment that we're in, and we're talking there about being at home or being in a restaurant, is there an optimum environment for you to write and create? Is it a cafe space? Is it at home? Where do you think you do your best work?
I do it in my brain.
It doesn't matter where you are?
No, it doesn't matter where I am.
So interesting.
It doesn't matter where I am. If I'm sitting in a restaurant, I'm watching someone doing something, then it just piles up. And then I'll just say, okay, fine, let's write this. Let's do this.
What about you, Mem? Does it depend on the type of work?
Yeah, I'm going to speak on behalf of Paul Bishop because he's our sort of creative genius, really. He will take influence and references from everything he experienced, any environment, wherever he is, when he travels, just it doesn't really matter where he is. But he will see the world very differently, which brings him to a kind of meditation state. And so he will see texture, he will see environment, and he will start to sort of play in his mind to then how does that then adapt from a literal to then something very conceptual. But a lot of the time his thinking will come from when he's just alone, often in the bath with a glass of whiskey. And that's when his creative sort of genius comes out, really. That's for him is that association, again, kind of maybe not too dissimilar to what we're saying.
Churchill in the bath, right?
Exactly.
That's exactly.
A lot of people solve a lot of problems in the shower.
Quiet, it's I often
running water does a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm the same with swimming, and actually having amazing conversations when swimming. This idea of
I'm with you on swimming.
Water flow and being held.
You know what it is though? I think it's movement. I think it's our relationship to water and that the action of movement, which we all know. Like movement is so important.
Just inertia.
Movement in water, it's because it's quite a repetitive thing.
It's supportive as well.
You're actually falling into a mini meditative state. Like you see the Olympic swimmers, they're doing if they're doing 10,000 meters, let's say, they're in a meditative state. There's no other way to be doing that. That repetitive.
That's right. It's too monotonous.
Yeah. And it's very powerful.
It's interesting because I think for a lot of people, we have different times of the day where we're our most creative. Ironically, I'm kind of better in the morning, so I can only imagine how good my radio show would be if it was at 8 a.m. But if I need to do deep work, if I'm writing a book or I'm writing an article, it tends to be the morning that I'm kind of at my best, and I do need quiet, or I need brown noise or white noise or pink noise or whatever. I'm kind of
pink noise is nice.
Pink noise is nice,
very
but
nice.
Sometimes if I'm meeting people and again wanting to have these conversations that are going to spark something instantly, I need to be almost kind of overstimulated. You have to speak to that in terms of some of the psychology around color as well and the way it can make us feel. And when you're creating a space for someone that wants, a home that feels like a sanctuary or an office that's going to feel productive, or, how are you using color, commercially and residentially?
Again, it's exactly what we said earlier. It's about the emotion, and yes, there are certain colors that are known to be sort of emotionally triggering. Red can come across as quite aggressive and
energizing.
Exactly, or energizing or passionate and sexy, all of these things. So we just have to be quite clever in what palette we use. If we're going for calm and warmth, and then yes, we may look at earthy tones where people can sort of relate and connect or resonate with that color to then somewhere else, So that's how we would use it. But it is about the palette.
So to come back to you doing a lot of work here in Dubai, you were doing a lot of work in Miami as well. Yeah. You have your office there. Where do you see it going in terms of, let's talk AI a little bit as well. If that's something that you guys are using as a tool.
A tool is a good word, yes. I think we would be foolish not to be exploring it. It is a great tool. It's a very quick tool, but it doesn't replace the creative. It doesn't replace the artist, So I don't think it ever will. It's, as a creative, you need the origin. The origin's got to come from somewhere. AI can only produce on what already exists. So you still have to come up with the new, what's next, that. So we use it. We will only use it very conceptually, just to try to express suggestive directions, but nothing more than that. It can never be.
We've seen whole scripts being written in AI now, which I find really interesting, and whole movies. How do you feel like you're going to be staying relevant with your storytelling, Zenofar, in the next kind of 5-10 years?
See, like how he said, it can only be a tool. Human crafting and whatever humans are doing, that's the best, because that gives a lot of sense, I feel, So AI can be used as a tool. And probably I might use it, but only as a tool, but that's not going to cover up my story.
I find it interesting because the voice work that is being done around AI, I'm like, maybe I'll just have a little afternoon off. I'll feed in some things. But no, you're absolutely right. And we think
it's a tool we can feed in, but it cannot be completely that.
And there's going to be no replacement for that eye contact, that
I wouldn't want
human
it to
touch.
be.
No, I wouldn't.
We need that connectivity, and I agree with what Sacha was saying earlier as well. We are losing that human connection.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's going to get to a point where people are going to start craving that again, and we're going to be lost as to how we get it back.
Talk a little bit about technology. I have to ask about the painting going to the moon, because the considerations you must have to have about how you create it, can you break it down? Can you bottom line a little bit about this story, Sacha?
You notice, I'm not good at short answers,
That's
but yes,
fine.
I'll try. We think of NASA and it's like, wow, yeah, NASA, they always go to the moon. And then you realize, no, they don't. The last time they went was 50 years ago. They were going again for their 50th anniversary. They've been working on it for the last 20 years to make sure they went that year, 2022. Because they last landed in 72. They approached me through a company called SpaceBit, who are the guys that put all the bits together, I guess. So NASA are what you call the operations, let's say. Then they have a company called Astrobotic. They do all NASA's moon landers, all their technology. Then you have SpaceBit, who organize what's called the payloads, the scientific payloads, which are the things that are going to, like the little rover thing that comes out and it finds information for us, right? Scientific payloads, building data, bringing it back to us. And then there was a company called Selenium, who were the art curators in space, generally.
I mean, talk about a niche job.
Yeah, right. And then there's more space, there's more art in space than you think, because it's commercial gimmicks and it makes money. So there's a lot of that, like in the art world generally. But, and then there's Jeff Bezos, who developed Blue Origin, which was the rocket, the Vulcan rocket. Anyway, so all these guys get together, there's this mission, goes to the moon, and they asked if I could create a work of art that would be the first official piece to land on the moon's surface. And NASA said, well, we can only, because Armstrong in 72, he said, look, can I put a piece of art on the moon, blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, what are you going to do it with? What's it going to be? And he said, well, there's little thumbnail tiles where he had Rauschenberg, Warhol, the top artists at the time, just do a little squiggle on a tile. And they said, yeah, sure, fine, but we can't officiate that as a work of art on the moon, because as soon as you put them on the moon, they're going to disintegrate, they're going to dissolve, they're gone. So no, but do it anyway. And he did. He dropped them on the moon. But this was confirmed as the first official artwork to land on the moon, because the idea is it was tested for the project took over 3 years. For me, just me. NASA was 25 years. Me was 3 years. The thing that took time was the fact that NASA said, look, for us to confirm that this is the first artwork to land on the moon, we have to know that it's going to be able to be there for 1,000 years.
What? I mean, who's verifying that in 1,000 years?
2 years worth of verifying, testing in different conditions in this like vacuum sealed environment, thing. Anyway, so it has to withstand minus 190 at night, plus 200 in the day. So you can't just put it there because it's gone. Then I created these 8 hearts that were what I would call the 8 elements of our world, which were earth, wind, water, fire, air, time, humanity, light. And then I sort of built them all together into one heart, which was 2 figures entwined in the middle like this, which showed the reconnection of humanity. And as humanity reconnects, the world around within the heart is thriving, i.e. the oceans, the rivers, the deserts, the trees, the whatever. We're all thriving as an earth, as a humanity, if we reconnect. So it's laser etched into this plate.
I was going to say, what's the medium? What do you use for that?
So the plate itself, no one knows what it was made of. All the composites, the elements are complete secret.
One scientist knows.
Yeah, right.
That's
Well,
it.
probably
He's
20.
had to sign a few NDAs.
Yeah, there's a few heavy NDAs. And then I had to laser etch the image, the heart.
Did you do that yourself?
Entwined. Yeah, with the 2 entwined figures and then the earth flourishing around the flora, fauna, animals, etc. The reason why I did it and what interests me is the problem with space is it's this thing of why are we spending so much money on space when we can't look after our own planet? And I think why are we? It's a fair argument, right? What on earth are we doing? But then I found out that actually there is quite a bit we can learn now. Technology's moved a lot in the last 10 years, even more in the last 18 months. And we can learn stuff. But the moon, I think, is fascinating. You were mentioning earlier, is like, why are we so fascinated by the moon? I think the moon affects everything about us.
It really does. We think about tides and
everything.
emotions.
As our Earth goes into darkness, the only natural light we have is our moon. And if from our moon, this light could be shone to Earth with this message of a reconnection of humanity, maybe that can do something, resonate something, create a vibration, maybe something
good can come as we sleep.
Yeah. I mean, from the darkness comes the light.
Yeah, I love that line.
And there's the 2 things I sort of learned from Mr. Mandela, which really inspired me forever. And one is from the darkness comes the light, which was something that when you really understand what that means, it's so beautiful. And the other is from the movie Coach Carter, which is one of my favorite movies ever made. And it's the beautiful poem and which Mandela recited. It's what got him through 24 years of incarceration, just reciting it over and over and over. I am the master of my fate and the captain of my soul. And then within that is the idea that we should always shine our light. We think we're doing a service to others by hiding our light under a bushel. Oh no, I don't want to, because if I shine too bright, I'll hurt this person next to me and this person won't get. Nonsense. You shine your light as bright as you can because then you encourage others to shine theirs.
It's really interesting. I was listening to Simon Sinek recently and he was talking about friendship, about connection and how we might have people we can call on in bad times and we should have people we can call on in bad times. But who do we call when things have gone right? Who are we not afraid to...
That's a very interesting thing.
To celebrate with you, that you're not going to make someone feel bad by shining your light, that someone will be there. And I think that's when we think about that. I'm like, I've got people I can call in the bad times, but there are probably only a few people I would say, it's happened, I'm thrilled, I'm
beautiful.
I'm
That's
delighted.
A really good point.
I think that's a... And actually, this brings me to my last question. And it's an agree or disagree, but you can elaborate on your answers. Mem, do you think the best art is where the artist makes it for themselves?
Yes. I don't even think they make it for themselves. I'm not an artist. I consider myself to be a frustrated artist, to be honest. But I think it's not making it for themselves. They just make it because they have to make it.
The thing about me is if you don't believe in yourself, how others will believe in you?
You got to show up for yourself.
So I make it not for them. I make it because I believe in myself. And I believe in that story. Yes, it has that much of potential.
It's also a message. It goes beyond, again, the aesthetic and producing it. It is a message for the world, and if you're brave enough and you're bold enough to put yourself out there and get that message across, then I've got something to say. I have a voice.
And isn't that one of the big regrets I think that a lot of people have? It's that I wasn't true to myself.
Yeah.
I didn't say what I meant to say. I didn't live authentically. And I did things for other people. And that can take many forms of service. But that's not.
But I think the best artists don't realize they're doing that.
I agree with that.
They're just doing it because it's them.
As soon as they realize it's not authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lost. Sacha, agree or disagree?
I don't know how to answer that. To be honest, I'm not just being annoying. I don't know how to answer that because I think it's about creating from a state of surrender. That's what I'm about. So I'm not creating for me, for you, for anybody. I'm in a state of surrender.
Well, for what it's worth, I'm glad that all of you are creating for yourselves and for us in the ways you do through entertainment, through connection, through experience. Through the craftsmanship. I think it's been really, really fascinating to have you with us today, and I cannot thank you enough. Mem, Zenofar, Sacha,
thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been lovely here.
Thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing these insights into this world of design and art. You know, these contributions not only beautify the spaces and screens, but also, as you've been hearing, challenge us and enrich our understanding of the world. So do join us next time on Beyond the Surface. This podcast is brought to you by Design Studio by Al Huzaifa. We continue to explore the depths of creativity and design. Until then, keep pushing those boundaries, keep crafting your own unique styles. Thank you so much.